Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Riverfront. This is episode number 540 of the World's Dangerous Podcast. 540, wow. I'm your host, Chad Dotson. With me this week, first time in a while. It's good to speak to you again. How are you today, Joel Luckhaupt?
I'm good. I think it's been about a year, probably.
Not that long. That's not acceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. I'm going to blame you, even though it's entirely my fault.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm not easy to find anymore as I used to be.
That's true. Actually, you're trying to hide, and that's okay. What about these Reds? You want to talk about the Cincinnati Reds?
Sure. If we happen to have gotten together this time last year, everything would have looked exactly the same, except that they would have brought up a whole bunch of young guys that were cool, because they had the exact same record after 68 games that they have after 68 games this year.
And sort of a similar way, I've been calling up, but sort of a similar way. They started off poorly and then car a little bit. It's interesting.
Well, it's really interesting. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but David Bell in his tenure actually has a winning record in June and July, which is pretty amazing because he's something like 40 or 50 games under 500 in the aggregate for him. So having a winning record in June and July is, but it's got to make you ask questions like why are we, why does it take so long for this team always to get going? And then of course, why do they always fold in August and September? So, is that a managerial or coaching staff issue? Is it the type of players they're getting? I don't have those answers, but you hope that the Reds are at least evaluating that kind of thing.
Well, surely they are. And at this point, we're not talking about David Bell has been around 2 years. I mean, he's been around a while, and you're right. They seem in some historically bad starts, or they seemingly start bad every year. And that's right. I can't believe that though. That a winning record in June and July. Actually, that was my mind.
Yeah, I think I figured it out that back when they were at 40 games, I think it was, he's never had a winning record at the 40 game mark in a season. I mean, as close as they've been to the playoffs a couple of times, if you win those games, you may be in the playoffs. I mean, we tend to give them a little bit of a pass because they play so hot during the summer and then they get into the race and we remember them being in the race, but those slow starts could be the one thing that's keeping them out of the playoffs every year.
Well, and maybe there's not an explanation. Maybe it's just, the luck of the draw, but if the Reds aren't seriously examining what might be the cause, whether it's the way they're preparing for the season, whether they're I don't that's a fascinating stat. But as we stand now, the Reds are 33-35, second place in the National League Central. 10 days ago.
I don't need to mean to spoil it for you, but they're actually in third. The Pirates or the Cardinals won today. Sorry.
It's already the game's over. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So anyway, this has been the Riverfront. Joel's ruining my fun already. We're not even.
I don't mean to well actually you, but I'm not on Twitter anymore, so I don't get to well actually people a whole lot anymore. So
you will enjoy. You're welcome to do it here on this show. But the fact of the matter is, they're not particularly first place right now, but still, 10, 15 days ago, the season looked like, oh gosh, what are we even doing here? And I didn't see much of a path forward. Maybe some starting to play a little bit more like the back of their baseball card, Jammer Candelario, for example. But because we didn't have all the kids ready to come up, so I thought, But they're in the middle of a stretch here. We're playing against mostly teams within the division, and it's a good time for them to have caught a little bit of fire.
Right. I agree with you. Back when 20 days ago, it was a little bit of a despair feeling because it was like the only way they're going to get better is if the guys that are currently on the roster start playing better, which you kind of expected them to play a little bit better, but there wasn't that hope of like, why aren't they bringing these guys up kind of a thing like we were feeling last year. But yeah, you're exactly right. Playing within the division, it's the best time to be hot. If you're going to struggle, I mean, and they, to be fair, they struggled against teams that were good teams, so that's going to happen. The problem is that, if you consider yourself a playoff team, sometime you've got to be able to be competitive against even the good teams. And, I do want to point out that they do have the tiebreaker against the Dodgers and the Phillies. So
there you go.
When they tie, for the number one seed at the end of the year,
home field advantage, babe, coming our way.
But this is this coming weekend is a huge weekend for a July or a June series. They've struggled against Milwaukee in recent years. Their inability to beat Milwaukee kind of turned their season a little bit last year from the positive that it was going into a little bit of a negative. If they want to get back into the playoff race, and as they sit right now, they're 7 games out in the division. They gotta beat Milwaukee. I mean, that's just the fact of it. If they don't beat Milwaukee, the division's not in play for them anymore.
I'd much rather be division winners going into the playoffs here. They are in the playoff hunt. It's sort of a weird. I didn't look at the standings today, as everyone already discovered, but just a couple days ago, there were 4 out of the 15 teams in the National League had a winning record. Only 4 teams. It's such a strange year. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's anything like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some of these teams are going to get hot. So you're going to have teams. You're probably going to have more than, I think they're at 5 teams with a winning record in the National League right now. I think you're going to have more than that, 6 or 7, but it's not going to be, somebody's going to make it in the playoffs at like 83 wins. I mean, it's the nature of having so many playoff teams. And it's the nature of the way teams are run right now. 3 or 4 teams really put it all in to try to compete. And then everybody else is just trying to win enough to get in. Yeah.
There's never been a better time to be a mediocre team or a team with an owner that aspires to mediocrity, right?
Yeah. 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 Or just wants to refuses to spend because spending, as like a team like the Mets will show you, spending doesn't guarantee wins like it used to. And then, you don't want to spend if you have just as much of a chance to get into the postseason without spending as you might with spending.
And I hate to argue in favor of, the cheap, going the cheap route. But the fact of the matter is, if you just get in playoffs, you do have a shot.
I mean, the Diamondbacks went to the World Series last year.
Exactly.
The Diamondbacks who finished a game or 2 ahead of the Reds, squeaked in the last couple of days, ended up going to the World Series. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the Rangers kind of backed their way into the playoffs last year. So yeah, I mean, this isn't like the NBA where, the number 1 and number 2 seeds typically are the dominant forces within the playoffs. And baseball, once you're in the postseason, anybody, I mean, especially if you've got 2 or 3 good starting pitchers, yeah, you can go deep. And the Reds actually have that. It very well could be, if the Reds can get in, they can do damage. But we've said that before, right? Remember when Joey Votto said teams are afraid to face us in the postseason, and then they proceeded not to score any runs in the postseason?
I do remember that. I remember it very well. Yes.
I can't ever just have a positive thought, can I? Always gotta.
But there's too much water in that bridge. We've seen too much over the last 30 years. But you said something. That's where I was going to go. Is that all right? Maybe this is rose-colored glasses. Maybe this is squinting to be positive here. But the Reds do have the staff this year. It's a time in a while, first time in a decade, probably have a starting staff where I'm like, oh, we have three guys that I feel pretty good about if they're healthy.
Right, absolutely. You got 3 guys plus. I suspect that Graham Ashcraft will be a factor again. And Frankie Montas, he's up and down. But when he's good, he's really good. And if he can figure out a way to stay good, to continue to be good over a few starts, I mean, That's the interesting thought though, is that, what if Ashcraft comes back and kind of regains some of his form? It leads to an interesting thought if they were to make it to the postseason, whether or not you would use Montas, or if you'd use him maybe as an emergency guy out of the bullpen. If say your pitcher hurts his torso in the first inning of game 1, just as an example.
I'm not gonna honor that with any further comment. The real ones know it was over there around. Or I could see Ashcraft being a pretty good relief pitcher playoff team. With that.
I mean, Ashcraft, if he can't recover as a starter, I think he would be a totally dominant back of the bullpen guy. He's got that attitude. If he can just go all out for an inning, I'm sure he's probably hitting 100 regularly then.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So that it's certainly not a bad fallback position. And it's certainly the type of pitcher the Reds could use going forward. Alexis Diaz has had his struggles, and maybe he gets out of that, but there's nothing wrong with having a second closer.
Yeah, absolutely. Hunter Green. What are your thoughts about Hunter Green? I've heard of him as well. Yeah. I like Hunter Green.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
He's taken a step forward, hasn't he?
Yeah, who would have thought that Hunter Green would be the innings eater on this staff right now?
No, right.
Never would have. I mean, even at the beginning of the season, never would have thought it. It's, from everything that I've heard, it has a lot to do with Frankie Montas's influence. That he is a guy that has just kind of convinced Hunter that, if you want to be the pitcher that is a reliable staff ace, you need to go deeper in games, and you need to do it, by being a little more conservative on your pitching. And, it's kind of interesting because this is probably the wildest we've ever seen Hunter be. He's second. Well, he's tied for the league lead and hit batsman with Nick Lodolo, who, Nick Lodolo is, as they say, effectively wild. But, Hunter has been, I think he's walking more guys than he typically has in the past. But it's working for him for some reason. He's able to make it work. And it's great to see. I'm glad that he's made the progress that he has made.
Yeah, no, and again, just 24 years old. So there's more in that that hopefully he can improve more. And so I'm pleased. And he's walking two guys still, but he's able to get deeper in games. And here he couldn't get out of the fourth inning, I thought.
Right.
And everyone thought, here we go,
Right.
And then slowly but surely.
I think the addition of the splitter, even though he's still kind of figuring out when to work it in, is a pretty big deal for him. It gives him that off-speed pitch that looks like a fastball. And so, he can play something, he can really play off that fastball. And then the slider is still pretty good. Still a pretty good pitch. But just having that, that pitch that's just a little, looks, when he throws it, it looks like a fastball coming out of the hand. And if he's throwing 97, 98, that's the thing about him, is he doesn't really touch 100 ever anymore. If you watch his starts, he maybe every once in a while kind of accidentally hits 100, but he's kind of learned to work at a little bit lower of a speed, and it's working for him. It allows him to play off his other pitches a little better and not be so dependent on the fastball.
Yeah, I'm really, really eager to see the next 12 months or 18 months of Green, what we get
right
at the end of that time. What about you mentioned Nick Lodolo, and you mentioned effectively wild, but let's emphasis on effective, because he's 7-2, 2.93 ERA, 43 ERA plus. Walking some guys, hitting some guys.
Yeah.
But I love watching. I mean, yesterday, for example, and I'm recording this on Thursday. Yesterday, he didn't have his stuff. He just didn't have his stuff. But he got it out, and it ended up being a pretty good start. So, what's not to love about Nick Lodolo?
Right, exactly. And that's the big thing yesterday. I mean, they're a good team. They're a good contact team. And they're still, he was still able to work around putting guys on base. And that's huge. That's what makes a really good starter is when you have those games where you put a bunch of guys on base, whether they're walks or whether they're bloop singles or whatever they are, that you can limit the damage. He held the Guardians to just two runs. And obviously the Reds got the win, and he still went 6 innings, even though he was pretty wild for most of the day. So, yeah. I mean, he has those starts where you're like, wow, he's unhittable today. If he can keep it around the zone, then, he's going to throw something special. And then he has those starts where he's like, oh man, he doesn't seem to know where it's going, but his stuff moves so much that I think it still makes him effective. I mean, that curveball, guys, when he's wild, guys probably aren't sure if that pitch is going to hit him or not. And, that's how he gets people to swing and the ball still hits them. And that's how he gets, guys to flail. I'm trying to think of, in his last start against the Cubs, and Cody Bellinger had one of the ugliest swings I've ever seen on a pitch. And it was a curveball, but the ball moved so much that Bellinger was like, oh, that's going to be a strike. It's not going to, I got to stop, but he had no chance. And I was like, in fact, because I think that ended the inning, and I looked at Barry and I said, I bet as a pitcher, there's nothing better than the feeling you get when you see a guy who's been a quality major league hitter have a swing like that,
Make a good. Well, anybody that's in the major league is good, but make one of the best. A hitter like that look silly,
right?
But I mean, I bet you're strutting back to the dugout after that.
Absolutely. Even if you're not visually doing it, you got a feeling inside of you that's like, yeah.
That's right, exactly. What the best part of that win against Cleveland was on Wednesdays. The best part was this. It made the series against Cleveland 1-1, which means that Reds are still in the mix for the Ohio Cup.
I know. I mean,
how excited!
Can you imagine the summer of depression the city would have had if the Ohio Cup was already clinched before we even get a chance to go up to Cleveland and bring it home?
Oh. Yeah, no, I don't even want to think. I don't even think.
I know. It would have been. It would have been rough. It would have been a rough. even if the Reds had won for the entire month of July, in the back of their heads, it would have been hollow.
Well, just let me go ahead and hit our first mail question from our friends at patreon.com/riverfront. Brandon Kamek asks, is anything more prestigious than the Ohio Cup? To which I say, I'd rather the Ohio Cup than win the World Series. I'm just going to say it.
I mean, there isn't another trophy between in a head-to-head matchup. There just isn't. You know why? Because everybody was like, no, we can't match that. It would be foolish of us to pretend that our series matters like that.
Yeah. No one can.
God bless. Now, that being said, it's been a decade since the Reds have had the trophy.
There we go. All right, Joel. We're trying to dream here.
I know, this is the year. That's what I'm saying. Think of how good it's going to feel. Because the thing is they don't play again until September. And we know by then Cleveland's going to have folded. They're going to be out of the race. They're not going to, they're going to be like, hey, we used to be good. And we're all going to be like, whatever, give us our trophy.
And what I envision is parade in September after winning the Ohio Cup, and then another parade in October after winning.
Yeah, but I think the second parade, people will be burnt out at that point. They won't care.
Probably, but it's not as prestigious, but still.
Yeah, that's just a hunk of metal.
Exactly. It's not the Ohio Cup. While we're on the mission, can we talk about Andrew Abbott for a moment?
Oh, absolutely. He's good.
What do you? Is he good or is he good? That's my question.
Well, he's good. I mean, he's consistent. Look at this.
All right, where did Andrew Abbott go to college?
I don't know. He's got that funny accent though, so probably somewhere near you.
Yes, very much so.
Abbott had that one bad start against St. Louis. And even then he went 6 innings, gave up 6 runs. But besides that, I mean, he's given up 4 runs one other time. It's been less than 4 in every other start. And like, what else could you ask for from a starting pitcher? I think they've been a little conservative with his usage because he hit the wall last year, and they're trying to avoid hitting the wall at the end of the year this year, which I think is probably a valid concern. But at some point you got to just let the dogs hunt, right? You can't keep pulling them back. And so hopefully if they continue on this run and are back in the race, they let Abbott, kind of just do his thing and not use kid gloves quite as much. I mean, he has gone 7 a couple times in his last few starts. But I feel like he gets pulled from good starts a lot earlier than some of the other guys. But he's great. I don't know what else you could ask for from him. He's, for a guy that doesn't have overwhelming stuff, who doesn't blow you away with the radar gun, consistently getting outs. And he's doing it differently this year. Like last year, he was all high strike or high fastball, and now he's working down in the zone a little bit more, and it's working for him.
Yeah. I often don't know how he's actually. He's not overpowering people generally. He's just it's really interesting to watch. But he's as consistent as they have. I think you're right. There's probably a little of kid gloves because they could have used him in September last year, and he was gassed at the end of the season though. But I think you're right. At some point, they could at least take the brakes off just a little bit. I hope, and maybe it's happening now.
And maybe that's the plan for as the season goes on. They're hoping that by not burning innings early in the year, that they'll have more of them for later in the year.
And all his alma mater this week qualified for the College Baseball World Series.
So, the ACC SEC Challenge, you mean?
That's exactly right. It is the ACC SEC Challenge. And the ACC, I hope, is going to prevail in the College World Series. So Abbott will get a College World Series, his alma mater anyway, and then get an Ohio Cup. It's going to be a special year.
And then maybe one of those Major League World Series if they feel like it at the end.
Yeah, that too. Sure, why not? throw one of those in there too. Why not?
Sure, why not?
Let's shift over to the lineup just a little bit. And another thing that if you 10, 15, 20 days ago, if you'd have told me that we'd be sitting here almost close to mid-June, just about June, and the best OPS plus on the Reds would belong to Jimmer Candelario.
It's pretty amazing.
Amazing,
isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how quickly he's been able to turn it around. I mean, he was atrocious in April, just atrocious.
Oh.
Like no confidence in having him come to the plate in any situation. And he was huge yesterday's game, a couple of home runs. He's really kind of been, I think I saw he's slugging like 900 in the first inning this season, which is,
wow.
Like Aaron Judge. I think it was Aaron Judge and Tyler O'Neill are the only hitters that have a higher slugging percentage in the first inning. I mean, it's huge. It's huge.
Judge, O'Neill, and Candelario. I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Similar players.
Yeah.
But even most of May, he started to pick it up some, but he just didn't look like the guy that we had hoped he would be, I guess. And now he's just otherly.
No, I think he does tend to have hot streaks. We all remember when he got traded to the Cubs in the middle of last year and just destroyed the Reds for a weekend. Yep. It earned him a 3-year contract, but I mean, it's great. And the thing about it is, and this will be even more true when Noelvi Marte comes. One of the things that you're missing from last year to this year is the depth of the lineup. And I think Friedel's return kind of lengthened the lineup a little bit. If we can, Marte comes back and is at least a serviceable bat, you'll just have much more depth in your lineup, and you won't be so dependent on specific guys carrying the team anymore. It seemed like for a while there where they were very dependent on Spencer Steer and Ellie Deli Cruz, and then hopefully somebody else might be hitting at that time, and then when those two guys weren't particularly hitting well, the lineup was just barren. So having a deeper lineup, I think, just relaxes guys, makes it more fun to play. Think about it. Jonathan India has been batting bottom of the order for the last month or so. And he's really performed pretty well there. He's not, not knocking the world out of the, whatever. He's not destroying things, but he's hitting much better than he had been. And so just being able to have that depth, it makes it a lot easier it makes it harder for opposing pitchers to get through the lineup.
Yeah, and that's somewhere that we thought coming into the Reds would have that depth, and especially on the infield, they could have used another outfielder, an acquisition of another outfielder over the offseason. But of course, injuries and other things, performance.
Yeah, I think missing Matt McLean is probably the biggest detriment. He was their best hitter last year. Not having him in the lineup has been painful, to say the least.
Yeah. You mentioned Noel Marte there. Do you think the fact that he got an 80-game suspension for testing positive, do you think that's going to affect his Hall of Fame chances?
So we were talking about this, and we were pointing out how interesting it is. Do you remember that Emmanuel Clase missed a whole season because he had PEDs? Do you remember that Frankie Montas missed time for PEDs?
Really?
It's interesting. Fernando Tatis hears about it all the time, though. The question, I don't know what level of a player. Guys that are hitters tend to get more flack for testing positive than pitchers do, for one. I also don't know if people really know who Noelvi Marte is enough for this to stain him. I think Reds fans will recognize, but I guarantee you that if he comes out and hits 300 and hits 20 bombs or something like that the rest of the way, they won't care. Reds fans will look past it. And then maybe some divisional opponents will notice it, but the general public, I don't know. I don't know if they'll remember it. So, and obviously you're being facetious about the Hall of Fame, but that's a long way away.
Yeah, he's clearly going to get there. I don't want this to affect his chances.
Yeah.
A couple other guys. Let's talk about in this lineup. You mentioned Ellie. We have to talk Ellie, who he's a kid and he's still learning, and some peaks and valleys in his performance, and still as exciting as ever on any given night. But some nights it looks rough. Any thoughts about Ellie? Just top-line thoughts.
Well, the hard part about Ellie is there aren't a lot of 6'5" guys to fall back on as these are the examples of how to hit. There aren't a lot of guys built like him that have that flexibility that he has to be able to kind of be like, okay, this is where we need you to get you to. So they're in some ways they're kind of inventing things as they go along. Now, you could look at O'Neal Cruz, but O'Neal Cruz has this exact same kind of struggles. When you've got that much length, you've got some things you've got to overcome. And all the athleticism in the world isn't going to make it so that you can, hit certain pitches just because you have that length, right? You've got your timing has to be perfect. You have to be a little more precise. And we've seen that, in the field that he has the ability to make those adjustments and remember early in the season when there was calls for him to be off a shortstop and to be sent to AAA and learn how to play defense. And he's, according to StatCast, he's like the second rated shortstop in baseball right now.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
I know. And he's 22. There aren't a lot of 22-year-olds that have success right off the bat. And he's just, you just hope that you keep seeing progress from him. The thing I keep hearing from people that work with him is that he has a very good baseball intellect. He understands what he needs to do. It's just, implementing it is not as easy as everybody would like it to be.
Well, I constantly say, the pitchers are going to adjust. He's adjust. Well, you just have to let play out. He's still a kid, and I don't know. I'm nothing less than thrilled with him from Ellie. I wish he were being better, but
right. And John Sadak points this out a lot. That if you really watch his at bats from an at bat to at bat, pitchers really are. They feel much more precise with him. That they're right on the edges a lot more with him than they are maybe with some other players that they're not as worried about giving up a hard hit ball to. And so, that's something that he's going to have to adjust to and deal with and figure out how to make it work for himself. But, strike zone management is typically not something that 20 or 22-year-olds come to the major leagues with. It's something that you develop over time. Consistently guys tend to get stronger with managing the strike zone or they're out of the league. That's one of the two things. And so I feel like he's shown enough improvement in that area this year from over last year that I'm happy with the progress that he's doing. And now he just needs to figure out how to make the swing work consistently too.
Yeah. So I fully believe he's going to. From someone we were pretty excited about when he was a little bit of a kid, but finally having a perfectly cromulent season. What do you think about Tyler Stevenson? I'm pretty pleased with what we're getting from Tyler.
Yeah,
Stevenson.
He really reminds me of pre-2023 Tyler Stevenson now. A guy that more often than not is coming through when you need him. He is hitting the ball hard consistently, shown a lot of improvement defensively. I used to hear things like pitchers didn't really like throwing to him a few years ago, that you don't hear that stuff anymore. He's probably should get some credit for Hunter Green's improvements because he's been catching Hunter Green. I'm not going to give him all of that credit because I feel like the pitcher deserves a lot of that credit, but just the fact that his growth as a catcher, I think, has been a positive for the entire staff. It's fun in the moments when Tyler Stevenson comes to the plate because you feel good about him coming through in those situations.
I agree. Jonathan Indy just kind of who he is at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
And what happens if and when you have Martin McLean back? He's probably the odd man out, but he's a good depth guy to have.
Yeah. I think we kind of know what kind of hitter Jonathan Indy is. He seems a little bit better defensively this year. His range isn't great, but he's making more of the plays that he hadn't been. Some of the plays that he hadn't been making in the past. He just doesn't get the balls that somebody like McLean would get to. Hitting wise, he's going to have his hot stretches. He's going to have moments that are huge for you. I will give him credit that he seems to not be overwhelmed by a moment in a game. Now that being said, he's also got some flaws in his swing, and so he's gonna be exploited sometimes in those moments. But it isn't because the moment's too big for him. He seems very comfortable with an opportunity to do something special for the team.
Yeah, and his slash line, it's not great, but it's fine. 352 on base percentage. That's
he regularly gives you solid at bats. Sees a lot of pitches, makes the pitcher work, and you need guys like that in your lineup. If everybody's going up there hacking on the first or second pitch, then you're going to be facing the starter all the way into the seventh inning, and that's not usually ideal. You want some guys that are going to make the guy work a little bit. And I don't know if he's still one of the sees the most pitches per plate appearance, but he's up there. He doesn't swing at pitches out of the zone. I think last time I looked, he had the lowest out of zone swing percentage in the league for qualified hitters, because the reason I looked and noticed was because Stephen Kwan actually has a better percentage, but he doesn't currently qualify.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think you got to be happy with what you've gotten from him. If you can get a league average hitter who isn't a disaster at second base, that's what I would call a pretty good backup second baseman.
Yeah, absolutely. Most would take that every day and twice on Sunday.
They don't play twice on Sunday anymore, though.
No, my goodness. See, well, actually, gosh, he can't be stopped. Anyone else you want to mention on the either the lineup or the rotation you think that we haven't talked about, and that maybe we need to, or there's something you want to say?
I mean, I think it's disappointing that it looks like maybe CES's season is over. He hasn't been particularly good when he was out there, but he was one of those guys that I was like, well, if he can come back healthy and give you something like he gave you last year, that he could be a difference maker in the lineup. So it's kind of disappointing that at the very least, even if he doesn't have to have surgery to end the season, it's going to be a while before he's back. That was a little disappointing. Same thing with Brandon Williamson, although I wasn't completely sure where Brandon Williamson was going to fit until they sent Graham Ashcraft down. And then I thought, well, Brandon Williamson might end up filling in that fifth starter spot. But it is a bummer. It's always a bummer when a guy, can't get his season going and has to shut it down for the year.
Well, both are bummers if they don't, especially both those guys really encouraging seasons last year.
Right.
Really,
Absolutely.
Wilson was just almost all season long. He got better all season long, and by the end of the season, I mean, you got to say his final numbers, his performance last year, fabulous. I mean, really, for considering what I expected from him. CES, really exciting finish to the season last year. Not a good start this year.
Right.
But so both guys, the way all this has kind of gone down has fed into this narrative that we've been hearing about for years with the Red medical staff that I think is probably overblown, that I think you can pick out items like this for every single team. And of course, we follow the Red closely. But, CES had a broken hand. Well, he said he got hit on the hand, and then he stayed on the thing for 10 days and then found out it was broken. And then now looks like it might be season. I can see why you'd question Williamson. He went out on a rehab start and a start, but a rehab stint, and looked pretty good. And then you see a couple guys here recently out in India and CES. I think I want to get a second opinion on this.
Right.
So I don't think to say, because I'm not a doc, I can't really opine on this. But I don't know if there's anything you want to say to that comp frame.
Yeah, I always like to remind people that medicine is not it's not an exact science. I'm not going to apologize for what, or forgive them necessarily outright for missing things, but it is not something where everything's always cut and dry. So it's not always easy. That being said, it does feel like there have been several instances that you can point to over the last couple of years where guys' injuries were not what they were announced to be, at least. And it's just weird. It's weird. It's another one of those things where you hope that if the team is serious, that they're actually evaluating their whole processes.
You hope. Now I'm happy to give takes about a number of topics, but this is one where I actually try to use a little bit of, because I'm not a doctor. I don't know. No, it does seem odd, but
we don't
with any authority.
Even if you had medical knowledge, you're not seeing the MRIs, you're not seeing the X-rays that they see, and why they're making the judgments that they're making. you just hope that that eventually they find the right solution and guys can come back and be productive and healthy again. I mean, it's frustrating. I think that's ultimately probably why fans get upset about it, because it's frustrating to see guys that you want to see on the field have things drawn out and it not always be clear as to why.
I changed my mind. Shoot them all in the gun. This medical team is garbage. They're horrible. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Next question from our friends at page.com/river for Kyle Kapler. If I go to a Reds game and let's say fall and scrape my knee and a staff member there offers me a Band-Aid or something, should I go seek a second opinion?
I mean, I don't think those are the same doctors that the players get. That's all I can say about that. I mean, those doctors eat in the same press dining room as I eat in, so I'm going to say that they're great people.
There you go. Yeah. No, I hope the ushers or whoever the staff members are that are giving Band-Aids to some fan that scrapes his knee. I hope that's not the same people that's diagnosing Christian Encarnacion Strand. So one question I had for you. This is a quick question that I always talk about this time of year because I'm one of these guys. This is one of my leftovers of my childhood. I'm a sucker for All-Star game talk, of All-Star game debate, arguments. And I look at this team and there's maybe two guys I see that I can make a pretty good argument. Maybe more than two, but there's two that stick out that I think I can make a pretty good argument for the Reds' probably lone representative. It's almost always in my lifetime a lone representative.
You know what? I'm gonna challenge you right there and say that is not true, because until last year or the year before, they had the second longest streak of having multiple All-Stars behind the Yankees. So
I know.
I am going to challenge you on that because it is not factually correct.
Well, actually, I believe that. You're going to have to. We need some stat guy to actually prove that, because I don't.
I used to do that was my go-to stat almost every year around the All-Star game. I would always, because the Cardinals were right there for a while, and then they only had one. I mean, I don't remember the years anymore, but I don't know if it was last year or the year before when the Reds it was the first time the Reds had only had one All-Star. It was probably 2022. And they only had one All-Star, and it was the first time in like 12 years or something like that.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just because everyone I like to debate this question. I think I just presume every year they're only going to get one, because usually by the time we start talking about it, they have started this poorly, as we discussed, and seems like it.
Well, so I mean, some of it was they would only get one in the initial selection, and then they'd have a guy added later, that kind of stuff. But no, when they had that era, when Joey was here. I mean, he wasn't a perennial All-Star, but he makes 6, I think.
5 or 6.
Yeah. And they had Chapman, who would be there every couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you don't need a stat guy. You seem to know it all. Do the math now.
Jay Bruce made a couple.
Yeah.
So who's going to make it off this year's team? You've already told us that at least two people are going to.
Well, no, I don't know. I don't know that they're going to get 2. I mean, if Hunter finishes strong, he could be it. He could be the guy. Yeah. The problem is there's a lot of low ERA guys in the league right now, starting pitchers, and so it may not be. It could be Ellie. Ellie could get it.
I think.
Yeah, well, Ellie can get it on fame. Ellie could get voted. I doubt it, because Mookie Betts is in the same position, and Mookie is much more deserving of the start. But I mean, Ellie's already at that celebrity level where he's going to get a boost in voting. I suspect he'll finish probably top 2 in voting.
Yeah.
And I could see him getting picked because he's so popular as a player, and he's having a solid. He's not having an outstanding year, but there isn't anybody else on the Reds where you're like, oh, it absolutely should be this guy. So yeah, I think between Hunter, probably maybe Lodolo, and Ellie, and I hate to skip over Abbott, but I think that I think the other two starting pitchers will just look a little flashier or look a little more all-star like. Abbott tends to be a little more workman kind of.
I agree 100% with that.
Now, of course, if Jamer Candelario keeps hitting the way he's hitting,
that's right.
He might have 18 home runs by then. And
well, that's the thing. We still have a few weeks until this is all sorted out. But I think Ellie, to me, probably stands the best chance. The stolen base is I mean, he leads in that, so there's something there. But if baseball has any sense, they will want Ellie De La Cruz there. They wanted him there last year, not on the All-Star team for the home run derby. Right. They wanted to showcase him. It'd be smart then there.
Yeah,
but
he especially like if he's hot for a couple of weeks between now and then, and boost his numbers. If he's got 15 home runs and say 45 stolen bases by the All-Star break, I definitely think it'll end up being him.
I can't help but notice though that you didn't mention Buck Farmer.
Why
don't you think Farmer has it?
He's overlooked.
He is overlooked.
I mean, actually, when it comes to relievers, I mean, Fernando Cruz could get a little bit of attention. I mean, Cruz's ERA isn't particularly great, but his strikeout, he's got that nasty pitch. If they're struggling to find, and I think they tend to like to take relievers now a lot more than they used to. He doesn't have the saves though, which I think saves tends to play into being a reliever. I don't know. Like it's the whole having to have one from every team on there really kind of makes the decision-making a little bit weird too. Cause you'll end up with getting a guy from a team that maybe takes the spot of a more deserving guy from another team because they don't want to have 5 shortstops or something like that,
Right. Yeah. But since the Reds usually only get one player, I've always been happy for at least one player has covered every team rule. What are the Reds here? How's the season going to play out? What's your big prediction for the season?
They are 82-80 over their last 162 games. They're going to be right around 500 for the rest of the season. I think I don't, they may have a run. This run may continue. I just, outside of like Noelvi Marte coming in and being a all-star quality player that turns everybody else, kind of moves everybody up a notch in terms of play, there just isn't a lot of impact coming to the team. I wouldn't even if Matt McClain plays on the team. I mean, it's a shoulder injury. I wouldn't. If you're holding your hopes on Matt McClain coming in and being the player he was last year, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. He could come and be a solid player. He could come and win you a game possibly with a hit or something like that. But I doubt he's going to come and be the level of player he was, coming right off of injury. We're going to have to wait probably until next season for that to happen. So
maybe we will, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't bet the range on it.
Yeah. So then you're coming down to like, well, can Ellie kind of get back some of that excitement that he had earlier in the season? Can Spencer Steer, start rocketing some balls over the fence as opposed to just against the wall or whatever? Can Will Benson maybe? You do have some guys there where like, well, if I squint hard enough, I can see them playing better. And if those happen, then maybe you'll see more of a run. But I don't, for being a season coming off of the energy that they had last year. And I personally kind of felt like they didn't do much to change what they had last year. And I hate to say like this, I'm not one to typically say, I told you so, but I remember saying early on that, a team that wins a lot of 1-run games, you can't bet on that for the next season. And a team that has a lot of come from behind victories, you can't bet on that for the next season. And as we've seen this year, that, those two things have definitely fallen off. and so that's why I think we're seeing a lot of mediocrity, I would say. So they're gonna keep winning in June and July because that's what David Bell does. The question is August and September. I don't know. And we didn't talk about like what they should try to acquire. I think they should probably try to get another back of the bullpen guy. If you can acquire a good major league bat, I think they should probably try to do that. Probably maybe an outfielder. I don't know. Outfielder or first base at this point probably makes the most sense. But otherwise, like I think we're probably going to see most of the guys that we see on the roster right now are going to be the guys that they ride most of the way.
Well, I don't think I would get too excited about the Reds making acquisitions at the trade deadline.
Right.
Yeah, fool me once. Shame on.
Well, and it all is going to depend on what teams are asking for. I think they're still kind of in that mode of, obviously if they catch the Brewers by the middle of July and they're in first place, their attitude might be a little different. But if they're kind of in the same position they are in, or, maybe they're only 2 or 3 games out, but there's 4 teams that are close to the top of the standings in the NL Central. I think they'll just ride with what they have and maybe try to fix, get an extra pitcher in the bullpen or something like that. But I don't expect any major acquisitions.
Well, if I had to wager, they were in first place last year deadline.
Yeah,
and really,
but it was a different. It was a different time in the process.
It was.
And also they hopefully had learned the lesson that, year after year isn't a guarantee, that you got to take the advantage of the situation when you have it. At some point, they're going to learn that lesson. Hopefully, it's not before it's too late. You know what I mean? Like if they're. I'm not saying they're going to trade. I'm not going to say they're going to. I'm not guaranteeing any kind of trade. All I'm saying is that at some point they're going to make that move. It may not be this year. It may not be next year even. But at some point they're going to say, this is the year that we got to put up or shut up. Which tells me that I don't think that's this year, though.
Yeah. I know that day is going to come. I think that there are a lot of idiots out there screaming, you can't choose when you're compete. You're in first place. Go for it now. They know that they have to be smarter than some Yahoo screaming on the internet.
Right.
So I think that maybe they'll be complacent, be in the race, and with a shot to get the big playoffs, maybe not.
It's a difference between ownership and the front office, though. I will point that out. That I'm sure if the front office could do whatever they wanted, they would make the deals that they have in front of them. But there's always you have to sell it to ownership. And that's, I don't have any proof on that. That's the error that I get, that it's not always it's the complacency doesn't necessarily start in the front office.
Buddy, you don't have to sell me on that, of all people.
I know.
I believe it.
I know.
I don't think Nick Kroll is an idiot. I really don't. He's sometimes operating with one. Now, sometimes when he opens his mouth, he says crazy things, but he's often operating with one tied behind his back. I know. But if the Reds are 500 down the stretch, like you suggest, that's the way. The fact is, they will be close to the race. Right. They will be, in the middle of a wild card, and just one little hot streak at the end of the season, even though that's not what David Bell does. But one little streak, and they can sneak on in, and I'm going to have you on when they're this year's Diamondbacks, and we'll reminisce about the conversation.
We'll do live broadcast during the World Series games and see how actually maybe one playoff game when they have a chance to advance, so that we can just go crazy because they've advanced. So I'm a pretty big Indiana Pacers fan, and went to one of the Pacers playoff games against the Knicks this year, and they won. And now I've been to one Pacers playoff game, and I've already seen more Pacers playoff wins in person than I've seen Reds playoff wins.
Yeah.
And I've been to every Reds home playoff game in the last, 30 or 29 years. I didn't go to any in 95.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Last weekend I was in Huntsville when Virginia defeated Kansas State and advanced to the World Series. And I was like, whoa, you advance? You can to the next round? I didn't know that was possible.
That's legal?
Yeah. Really. Joel, man, this was fun. We need to do it more often, buddy.
Absolutely. I'm around.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take you up on that at some point. Any final thought? Anything else that I should have asked? Anything else you want to say?
No.
Well, good. Out of time. Joel is, of course, in the booth with John Sadak, Larry Larkin, and the team there at Bally Sports. Great job with statistics, and has been a long friend of this show. A couple of good books out there, Amazon. Joel, I'll never get us sharing a moment on Clinchmas.
Yes.
Out in the moon deck when Jay Bruce hit that home run.
I'm pretty sure that's the only game you and I have ever been to together. I mean, I'm sure we've been at games together before, but
yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's the only time you and I have shared time together at a game.
Oh, and I still think about it occasionally, and a tear rolls down my cheek. A special moment for me.
Yeah, it was like winning a playoff game, which I've never seen them do.
It was almost like winning a playoff game. Hey, thank you all for everything. Where you can find everything. Appreciate it. Joel, love talking always. This has been the Riffront. Joel Luckhaupt and who else? Give me an obscure red from the past. I forgot to write one
red
down.
From the past. Tom Lawless.
Oh, for Joel Luckhaupt and Tom Lawless. Good pull there. This is Chad Dotson saying, so long, everyone.